Thanks for joining us today, Gary. Appreciate you being here. Let me see who else I've got here. Oops, Zoom window just went small. Hey, Chris, thanks for joining us. For those of you who don't know, Chris is also one of our CRPC employees, so it's nice to have some coworker support as always. Hey, Becky, it's nice to see you as well, or to know that you're on the line. I can't see everybody's faces, of course. Hey, Donna, thanks for joining us. Hey, Drew, glad to have you on the line. Hey, Carolyn. Oh, there's Earl. Can we get a tour of your building? Yes.
You'll have to take me on a real tour. I haven't seen it since you guys renovated it.
You really should come by and see it because it's a completely different thing.
I can only imagine.
Although this is my favorite room.
Oh, I definitely can understand why. Y'all have a very nice outdoor space, it looks like.
We do. It's we even have, which we didn't have before, we have a covered porch and exit from the kitchen. So it's very nice now.
Okay.
Obviously not the front of the building that looks out into the DMV.
No, it is definitely not the front of the building. This is Levy side. So yes, y'all should definitely come by. Rachel, have we started trying to schedule something with Matt yet?
Yes, we are working on that, Earl. And Tom with RPC actually reached out and he said that he was intending on having a conversation with y'all as well. So we're going to have the conversation with 6, 7, and 8 so that we're.
Oh, that's so much better. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. So here's your warning. He is really tall.
Really? How tall? How tall is really tall?
6'11".
Okay, yeah, that's very tall. I'm 5'2", so that's almost 2 feet tall.
Most people give him the gaping mouth. You know, they meet him and he stands up and they go. So just be warned, you know, that you might wind up making the face because he's distractingly tall.
Hey, I mean, not all of us can have that type of height. It's definitely an experience I will never have.
Either.
We'll never have that. All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started, everybody. I think that we have most of the steering committee members here who I know are going to be here today. You might at times see me looking at my wrist, looking at my phone. That is not because I am texting or emailing or being distracted. It's because I actually have a timer to keep us on track. So just a heads up with that. We thank everybody for being here with us today. We know that your time is valuable, so valuable, in fact, that looking through my email is probably not what you want to do. If I can make an assumption there, it's pretty jam-packed inbox. But we're so grateful for y'all today. As always, I get to be the person who kind of leads the charge for these meetings, but it's certainly not me who does this work. I don't do it alone. So there's a list of folks here who have been fantastic and phenomenal in helping us drive the work forward. So Kim Arasek with CRPC, we have some other CRPC folks on the line. I saw Jamie Setz, our executive director, is also on the line today. Evelyn Campo with Office of Community Development, and Nicolette Jones also provides support for these meetings, who's also with OCD. Dr. Thomas Galstead and Lindsay Lamana with LSU. And then we're also going to hear from Rich Fulford and I think Joyce Stubblefield today from EPA as well. So there's a lot of names that are not on this list, but we always want to give a shout out to folks before we get started. So just say a big thank you. Our agenda for today, we're in the agenda item that is introductions and meeting logistics at this moment. We're going to move into past meetings, recap, reminders, updates, As a reminder for our steering committee members, last meeting we kind of started to institute this space where if you have updates that you would like to provide to the steering committee or other folks on the call that you think would be interested in either an event or some work that's ongoing, things of that nature, we invite you during that time to be able to speak up and provide that information. So giving you a little reminder before we get to that part of the agenda, we're going to have an update on the social network and plan analysis research from Dr. Dowsett as well as Lindsay Lamana. So we're really excited for y'all to be able to see some of that work and to provide some feedback. Then today, as a reminder, the Regional Steering Committee, we're going to vote on that round 1 project selection process. So we sent out a handout at the beginning of the meeting. So I'm going to actually drop this in the chat pod. Let's just see some of the behind the scenes stuff really quick, where I keep multiple tabs open for this meeting. But there is a 1-pager document that also links to about 2 pages within the project's policies and procedures for round 1. So we're going to review that information, just make sure everything is clear. And then we will do our vote today for the project process. And then there's one additional voting item, which that's the vote for the vice chair. We have public comment and then close out as usual. So as a reminder, this is a Louisiana public meeting, so it's going to adhere to the open meetings requirements. It's observable by the public. It is being recorded. You can find any of the recordings from the past meetings online at CRPC's website at crpcla.org/previous-events. We have the opportunity for public comments. Anytime that you put something into the chat pod, that's considered a public comment, and it's always recorded in our meeting minutes. That's in our meeting minutes. They're also found in that same previous events archive online. And as always, we would love to see your faces if we can see your faces. Some people, we understand, don't have a camera. That's okay. But as much as we can see people smiling on the other side, we love that as well. If you have any technical difficulties, please place a message in the chat pod, and one of our outstanding team members will work to assist you. As a reminder, we do have some shared agreements for how we want to interact with one another in this space. So we aspire to be brief and meaningful when voicing opinions. We seek common ground and understanding. We consider what serves the benefit of the entire region. And when presenting a challenge, offer a solution. And sometimes it's hard to think about the solution as well. So if you're not sure, it's also okay to say, I see this challenge, but I'm not sure of what the solution is and would like support in thinking about that. We also have the idea marina. So Kim in the background, if there are certain comments that come up that maybe, we're talking about projects today, but somebody says, oh, okay, well, what about flood insurance? We need to have a discussion about that. Then we'll put that in the idea marina as something that is of relevance and important for us to come back to and to build out intentional agenda space around. All right, so those are the quick couple of things before we get into the section of our agenda where we're going to do roll call. So we're going to do this in order by affiliation. Oh, and I see Tom Stevens just joined us. All right, so I'm going to call out your name and the affiliation and just let me know if you're here. So do we have Mike Inlow and or Ron Savoy with Ascension Parish? I saw Ron earlier. I see Ron, you're on mute, but I do acknowledge that you are in the participants list. So I will go ahead and record you as being present. Tom Stevens and or Fred Rayford. I think, Tom, I just saw you sign in and you were connecting to audio, it looks like. So I'm going to record that, and when you can hear us, we will get you connected. James Stewart or Joni Stone with East Feliciana Parish. I'm not seeing either one of them. What about John Clark with Iberville Parish? Do we have John Clark today? Okay, don't see John. What about Steve Kistler and or Mark Harrell with Livingston? All right. And then Earl, I know you're on the line, but can you say hello in the roll call just to make it official?
Hello.
Next time I'll request that you say something funny. Major Coleman and or Jeremy Williams with St. Helena.
Hello.
Hey, Major. I'm going to rename you on here. How are you today?
I'm doing fine, thank you. And how are you?
I don't have anything to complain about, you know? That's a good day, in my opinion. That's it. That's it. Thank you for being here. Let me see, Ryan Donahue or Ryan LaRousse with St. James. Okay, I'm not seeing either of them here. And I know Renee Pastorek with St. John the Baptist Parish. We have an update about St. John in just a minute that we're going to provide. He let me know this morning that he's been called into another meeting, so he's unable to attend today. So just a heads up there. Ross, you're primed. You're already off mute.
Hello.
Thanks, Ross. I think I saw Bridget Bailey log on earlier. Are you with us, Bridget?
I am. Can you hear me?
I sure can. Thank you for being here. I also received an email from Bobby Jo Breland with Washington Parish this morning, letting me know that she had a meeting that started that's from 1 to 2, but she's going to be on as soon as possible. So I want to make sure. Do we have Alex Sumrall on the phone? That's her alternate. He might be tied up in that meeting as well. Okay, don't see Alex. I'm looking through his participant list. Let me see. And Gary Migo, I think I saw you on the line with us.
Yes, I'm here. I'm
Hey,
ready.
Gary. You're ready. I'm ready. There we go. All right. And I think I saw Dietmar. You're on the line with us, right, Dietmar?
I think so.
Perfect. I can hear you. Welcome.
Yeah.
All right. And same, I think I saw Karen's name pop up. Are you with us, Karen?
Yes, I am.
Thank you for being here, ma'am. Appreciate you. All right. And then I think I saw Ronnie Carter as well.
Yes, I'm here.
Hey, Ronnie. Thanks for being here. Okay. Well, I think we've got all of our folks here. So we'll start to move into the more robust sections of the agenda. And right on time, a little bit ahead of time. So as always, we like to do a thank you. I say thank you often, and I can't continue to say it enough for the amount of time that people spend with us, for the work that you do outside of this space that greatly contributes to the overall breadth and depth of this work. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Ross, do you want to say a thank you?
Absolutely. Thank you. As Rachel mentioned, it's tough. It was tough for me to get here for 1 o'clock. So I appreciate all the hard work that goes in our background, and for all the regional steering committee members getting here for 1 o'clock. I mean, look, I know we're all busy, but this is very important work, and we're doing good stuff, and can't wait to continue working. So that's it. Thanks.
Thanks, Ross. And as always, we like to do an icebreaker, and considering the fact that we're in crawfish season and we've had some really nice weather days, I thought that we would ask you, how many pounds of crawfish have you had this season? So all the way from 0, they're totally gross, because I understand some people don't like crawfish. I'm not one of those people. And then also maybe some people haven't had any yet. So anywhere from none to I need more, I've had enough, I've had my fill for the season, or I'm basically a crawfish now. So you can kind of put in the chat pod where you're at on that spectrum. If we've got some steering committee members that want to let us know where you're at on there, I think it could be funny to hear from some of y'all. Personally, I think I've had enough to satisfy me. Had a couple of boils, and that seems like a lot. Oh, all caps, 0 for Chris. Earl would like some more. Robert needs more. I am a crawfish and I need more from Ross. Okay. I sense some more crawfish boils in people's futures. Bridget, you looking for some? Oh, come on, come down to oh man, what's the name of that corner store? Miller's Seafood out in Hammond. Get them to go. Ronnie, a sack or 2. Jenny, I'm basically a crawfish, but I can always have more. Yes. I love it. Okay. Well, that was fun and just meant to be a silly exercise. Let's see, we got one more. Karen, you said none, but I can't see the emoji you put. It shows up as a little box. I had a crawfish
crying
melt.
face.
Oh, so you're sad about it. Well, looks like you got some friends on this call who would definitely be able to get you some crawfish at a boil. crawfish melt sandwich from Elsa's. I've never heard of that, but it sounds delicious. Good thing we just came off of lunch, y'all. Otherwise, I'd be really hungry. So we got a couple of updates. I'm going to toss the second bullet point over to our colleagues at OCD. But the first one for St. John the Baptist, so Devin Foyle, who used to be at that shop, he has since moved on to HMTB, and I also understand that he's on the phone with us today in that role. So we are definitely very excited for him. When we shared this update, we definitely said it's not goodbye, see you later. And we got to see him later very soon. So he is doing work with EBR Stormwater Master Plan. So, you know, Tom, y'all got a good one over there. And we're very fortunate that he gets to stay in the nexus of the work and contribute vastly to the work within Louisiana. Renee Pastorek, who's the director of planning in St. John, is going to be our primary member. They're working to hire on Devin's position, and once that's filled, then that person will fill in as the alternate. So just had that update there. We're really glad to have Renee, and unfortunately he got tied up in another meeting. So we will get to do a formal introduction for him on the next conversation, but he has already participated in a transition team call in which he stepped into that role after Devin made his transition. So the vice chair in DEQ, or Evelyn, you or Dree or both, feel free to come off mute, or other folks from OCD who might make more sense.
Sure. Thanks so much, Rachel. And Dree, feel free to jump in. I'm just had my hand close to the mute button, so I just went ahead and unmuted. But I certainly don't want to take up your role here. My understanding is that Chuck has stepped down from this committee. And so we will need to have an item, and I'm sure you've seen it on the agenda, to elect a new vice chair. And so we'll walk through those motions kind of toward the end of the meeting. And of course, you know, I know he's not on the line today, but I know that we all appreciate so much all of the effort that Chuck has put into, you know, not just the region, but this whole program. And he continues to do that. You know, he's obviously still very much involved with the state side of the program. So we just thank him for doing that.
Yeah, thanks, Evelyn. And we had sent over, you know, some words from Chuck, specifically that resignation. And so I think there was some overlaps between his work at the region and the state that he kind of had to explore and navigate. And so this ended up being the option where he could contribute to the work and also be able to remain and provide integrity for the work. So that means that we have the vice chair slot open, as Evelyn said. We received a couple of nominations, and we will be able to vote on that at the end of the meeting. Chuck did pass on that he was very appreciative of this group. He values each of you so very much, and said, you know, if there are things where he can be supportive, feel free to reach out as well in his role at the state through DEQ, as well as state level work for LWI. So we're gonna miss him, but he's also, you know, it's not goodbye, see you later. He's gonna stay around in the state level for this work.
Hey, real quick, Major, I'm seeing some kind of like audio feedback coming through on what I believe is your phone line. What's that? Oh, okay. You fix it on your end. You're all good.
Thanks, Evelyn. I thought that sometimes the audio and my speakers, my AirPods specifically, is kind of weird. Perfect. Thank you. So on this particular opportunity, Dr. Dowsett, feel free to jump in here, but I know last time we had mentioned that we were applying for a Restore Center of Excellence grant that kind of explores past and future migration. It is supposed to be mostly for coastal, but as we know, a lot of our region is coastal. The coastal zone expands across a broad swath of it. And then we also know that migration patterns are also across more than just a coastal zone. So we're thinking about, you know, really how do we think about migration patterns based on impact of flood exposure and economic change. we submitted an LOI. We're getting ready to submit the full proposal. We had great feedback on the LOI. Tom, do you want to add anything to this?
Well, I mean, I think that was a great explanation. The only, thing I would say is that, what we're trying to do is, develop this proposal to get some resources to use some new innovative data sets, to really try to do micro level modeling to tease out, for different areas based on vulnerability and social factors, when there's a significant storm or flood event, do we actually see migration patterns? And, if so, that'll allow us to think about planning better and thinking more about the future, about what's actually happened, so we can show that with greater confidence.
Thanks, Tom. And I just want to also kind of relate that back to the Watershed Initiative. So, I think we spend a lot of time talking about planning and things related to planning. And so, ideally, the thing is that if we better understand these migration trends over time, then that means that we're going to have access to better resources and information to help us think about strategic growth in areas that are also lower flood risk over time.
I want to make a comment on this Restore Center of Excellence and the work that we are doing. I wish somebody would have contacted us a little bit, the Amityville Basin Commission, because we are required by federal legislation to do a floodplain management plan for the Amityville Basin. We are doing that. As a matter of fact, we're coming up with a inundation maps in the summer. It's very detailed. So I need to know what is when you say coastal Louisiana, what are you including in coastal Louisiana? What regions, what parishes are included in that? For example, let's say Washington Parish, St. Helena Parish, East Feliciana Parish. Are those considered coastal? Is that
yeah, that's a great question, Dimar.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Tom.
Director Wright, sure. I'd be happy to talk to you. If maybe we can email, we can talk more detail about this. But this is based for the Restore Act, and so coastal for this project is based on the the state delimited cooperative with the federal coastal zone in Louisiana, and it's based on the Restore Act, the oil spill recovery money. However, our modeling, we can certainly consider bringing in the coastal watersheds, expanding some of that. Although I think the direct consumer would be the 2023 coastal master plan. And I think these are questions, hopefully, that the question you raise is, how do we, in the long run, integrate our thinking about these areas, right? Because these connections, what happens in Washington Parish or what happens along the Emmett Basin is connected to those coastal areas. So, I think appreciate any feedback, and if any of that can be of utility to you guys, we'd love to know about that.
Well, we need to get together. I am not saying that, I know what coastal Louisiana is. I know the boundaries of coastal Louisiana. You guys have been doing this for years and years, so I'm very familiar with you. But I need to know that because we are completely in the blank, and our basin, the lower part of the basin is in coastal Louisiana, the lower part. I know that for a fact, but not the northern part. And so, like I tell you, we are looking, our configuration of geography is different than what you guys are looking from coastal Louisiana point of view. Our configuration is basically north-south, starting at the Mississippi line all the way down to Lake Moraba. And so we know that our lower part of the basin isn't there. All what I am saying is we need to talk and we need to coordinate, because we are working on this right now. We have been working on this for over a year now. We're coming up to finish this part of this program sometimes this year. And so I do not want to have a situation coming from left field, and those things do happen, that, okay, you guys are doing it and you guys are doing it. Who is doing it? We need to kind of really discuss this. And if we can get together by email, telephone, or otherwise, I think that will help tremendously.
Yeah, I
That's
totally
true. Yeah,
agree
I
with
would note
that,
that this is,
Dietmar, and I would love to hear about the work that you just mentioned as well. Because now that we're talking about it, I realize that we haven't been invited to a conversation about that. So
and I would just what I don't want to belabor this, but this is competitive. We might not get this, but some research around this issue will be sponsored through this Restore Act. Hopefully it's us, but if somebody else has a better proposal, it'll be them. And so I would love to talk to you, but if that's an interest of yours, I would definitely think a conversation with CPRA as it relates to the 2023 master plan would probably also be an outlet.
all right, thanks, also. We got some follow-up emails. That's one of the to-dos that I have written on my list. Perfect. And I see we just have John Clark entering the room, so we'll mark that down for Iberville. Oops. All right, I'm going to toss this over to our good friends at EPA, specifically with the Office of Research and Development. So if you'll remember last time, we had a couple of folks from Ouachita Parish who actually were on the line, and they talked about the work that they did with EPA's Office of Research and Development. So we've got Richard Fulford here, as well as I think maybe Joyce Stubblefield might be listening in the background. Yep, there she is. I see your camera now. So we're very glad to have them here. I'm going to toss it over so that they can actually talk a little bit about the work that we're going to be pursuing with them, and that we would love to get some feedback and input from the steering committee on.
Sounds good. Can you hear me?
We sure can, and you're co-host, so feel free to share your screen when you're ready.
Yeah, I'm going to bring up, should be able to see something.
I can see
the slide. Excellent. Okay. Well, good afternoon, everybody. I really appreciate the opportunity to present about this today. I know last meeting that Kevin was able to give you some information on what we've been up to up in Ouachita Parish, and this is sort of another iteration of that we like to do. We've been working, had a lot of good discussions with Rachel and some other folks on the steering committee. And for those of you, I've met some of you, I haven't met all of you, but for that, my name is Rich Fulford. I'm a researcher with the EPA Office of Research and Development, located in Gulf Breeze, Florida, a little bit south of Pensacola. If you've never been over our way to enjoy the beaches. And we are in partnership with also the EPA Region 6 office in Dallas, and Joyce Stubblefield is on the line. She's a member of the Region 6 staff. And the thing I want to emphasize going into this is that our role is really about information exchange and development of tools to help communities talk about the subject of resilience. We're not on the implementation side of EPA, we're on the research and development side. And so, what we're really trying to do is work with folks, and we learn from you, and then we're able to hopefully make some of the tools that we've developed more accessible, helps to operationalize some of the approaches that we've come up with to help communities work to improve their resilience to things like flooding. It's specifically here is working on what we call a flood resilience roadmap, and this is not a new thing just for Louisiana. We've been playing around with this for some time, looking at general subject of resilience to things other than flooding, and our movement into the Ouachita Parish has sort of moved us into the realm of talking about flood resilience. And we're extremely interested in some of the LWI guiding principles because they really align well with the things that we have tried to do through stakeholder engagement, which is to build resilience practices into the everyday planning process of local entities, parish and regional offices, the development of decision-making and support tools, the tools that allow for the maximum amount of information to go into the decision-making process, and then development of outreach materials that allows this information, once it's been developed, that it can be used by others. It's transferable and it's useful outside of the immediate community or the immediate region in which we do the work. And from the EPA side, this helps us because it improves access and ability, access and utility, of EPA tools. Things that we're developing for this purpose are more familiar and more accessible to local communities. It helps us spread the word about the idea of ecosystem services, about how humans benefit directly from nature and how that question should enter into the decision-making process. And it helps us with the question of how we can make things more transferable and more comparable across different communities. So it's kind of a, we work with you, you work with us kind of in plan that we're talking about implementing here. And as was mentioned last time, we just am wrapping up a similar effort in Ouachita Parish. We're working with Susan Monroe and West Monroe to talk about the services of the river to the community. And this was, again, a decision support effort. We were trying to talk to them about what they get from the river and how this information can be described and quantified so that it can be used, the information can be used. There was already an economic study of the river in place, and what we hoped to do was to be complementary to that effort and talk a little bit about environmental benefits and social benefits on top of the economic benefits, so that all of those pieces were front and center. And so when the community wanted to make their case for FEMA or make their case with the Army Corps of Engineers about navigation and levee maintenance, that they had that information available and it was in a communicatable form. And that I think went really well. It was a very productive interaction with the folks up there, and the report for that is available. Anyone's interested in seeing it or wants me to send it along, I can do that without any trouble, and I think you might find that interesting and useful. But what we want to do, I think another point I want to make early on is that we're talking about decision support, and we're talking about working with communities to improve their resilience through, apply, essentially trying to make the LWI guiding principles operational. We start that with stakeholder engagement. And that's really the structure of the stakeholder engagement process, which that we use, structured decision making is what it's called, is really the architecture or the backbone of what we do that makes it similar. What we did in Monroe was very focused on their interest in services of the river. What we would do, talking about flood resilience, probably look different than that. It would be focused on a different question. It would be focused on a different community. But the backbone, the similarity between the two would be the structured decision-making process and the tools, structured decision-making tools that we would bring into to guide a stakeholder engagement process. And this slide sort of lays that out. It's a cycle that is intended to what they call formal common sense. The term a lot of people use for this is that situations that are too complex for regular common sense, we bring in formal common sense. We try to get as many voices to the table as possible, conceptualize everything that people have to say, turn that into an understanding of their goals and objectives, and then use those goals and objectives to define how the decision, what information should be used or not be used to make a decision. And we don't make decisions. It's not our job. Our job is to help put information on the table and facilitate the process of stakeholder engagement so that those who are responsible for the decisions have the most information possible to do what they do. And what we're proposing right now in terms of developing this resilience roadmap is two steps, really. The first you see there on the bottom is a stakeholder participation process where we start with stakeholder engagement using a tool that we have developed within the EPA called DAISYs to really capture information from communities and make that information useful for the decision process. Step two is assessment and evaluation, and that's really where we're bringing information and data to the table and combining it, taking what people say matters the most to them and combining that as best we can with the information available from models, from information that's already been gathered by the community, from any source really that we can develop, and putting those two things together. And again, the point of that is that by doing that in a formal way, making all of that information as useful and transferable as possible from one community to the next. It's really about making information accessible as possible. So really what we're proposing to do, and I think that there's a version of this, the proposal that we've been working on. This is something that we have come about through several informal discussions. with folks on the committee is to engage with communities in Region 7 to talk. Initially, that would be through the stakeholder engagement process that I described using the tool, the DAISYs tool, to really understand, particularly communities that might not be as involved in this process as they'd like to be, to help them become involved, help them formalize what they want to do, and get that information onto the table and talk about how they can connect what they want to do with the information that LWI is making available. So, and what we would do is once that stakeholder engagement process is complete, we'd use that information as a part of the development of this roadmap document, which is really meant to be an accessory document to what LWI is trying to do, something that it would help connect people to the LWI process, connect communities to the LWI process, and possibly be useful in other places besides Region 7. I think one of our goals in going through this process is to do something that might be useful to other regions going forward. If it would start in here, but it would continue, it would be something that would be easily transferred if there was interest in doing that across the different LWI regions, other areas and other things that they have going on. But our focus right now is, basically we're very enthusiastic about the idea of possibly doing some of this in Region 7, just because you guys have advanced quite a bit. There's been a lot of good discussion about how to bring everyone to the table. And there's a lot of interest in stakeholder engagement. And so we're hoping that this will be a good place to get started with something that will ultimately benefit other folks in the state. So my goal here today really is just to give you a brief introduction, sort of, continue the conversation from last month, and hopefully answer any questions anybody has about what we would like to do or what we could do in Region 7, and then maybe foster a little discussion about what the next steps might be and how we could move forward with this. So I will just cut off right there what I have to say, and then open things up to anybody who has any comments or questions.
Can I add one thing really quick, Rich? Is it okay? Okay. I wanted to add too that this is meant to build on existing work across the region. So we're definitely, kind of have a list of efforts that have been done across the region, which, thanks to a lot of the extensive work in the plan analyses that Dr. Douthit and Lindsay have done, things that we definitely want to build on. So we're going to continue to build on the work. It's not meant to be duplicative, and it's meant to be something that helps folks, or really provides support for folks who are trying to get in alignment with the regional aspects of the work, and kind of what operationalizing that through really like the values and priorities of this region could look like. But and I know some folks have questions, so what's coming up for folks?
I just want to thank Rich. Been able to meet with him and his team a couple of times, and I'll listen to all the good work that they do and how it can complement the work that we're doing in Region 7. And looking forward to exploring this partnership a little bit more and moving things to a next step if that's where we're headed. But I'd like, if committee members or regional steering committee members, have any questions or comments, concerns, think about it, bring them up now, put them in a chat box, email myself or Rachel or Rich, at a later time, but definitely willing to discuss for a few minutes if we have any questions or comments.
And Joyce, I know that you've had a pretty big role with thinking about this work as well as doing the other work in Ouachita. So I didn't know if you had anything that you wanted to add or questions that you wanted to ask of the group.
Well, just in thinking about it, just number one is to definitely appreciate the opportunity to serve the community, the region. Gosh, you guys, it's like all hands on deck, and we're here to help you move the needle. We bring out, our research team in sort of give that leg up where you need it. We just appreciate the opportunity and just really look forward to it. So we had a good stay and we're still connected with Washington Parish. They mean a whole lot to us and we really appreciate the efforts and work that they've done. It's a lot on the table for folks to have to do and work toward. So we're really interested in helping to the state, however we see fit to build resilience. Thanks.
Yeah, Joyce, I'm excited about the opportunity as well on our side. So I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, Bob.
Yeah, and I think one thing I want to reemphasize is that this is really for us. It begins with the stakeholder engagement process. So when we talk about next steps, what we're really interested in is where a stakeholder engagement process might be the most beneficial to kickstarting a conversation about resilience in Region 7. Are there places or communities or parishes in Region 7 that might benefit right now from a conversation, a structured conversation about the question of flood resilience, or any aspect of it. Really, it wouldn't have to be about all of that at once, but perhaps about something very specific to them that they've been grappling with.
I don't want to be the one that keeps talking, but I'm raising my hand. I'm ready. We're ready in St. Tammany, so I'll put it out there.
Yeah, well, that's great. I think in the past, as they say, anyone is interested in specifics about this, or wants to dig into it, we can certainly point you in the direction of where had this been done. In addition to Monroe, we worked with communities all over the country on various questions, not just flood resilience, but other questions of interest to them, and use the same basic structure. And so there's lots of examples out there that we can point folks to about how this is played out and how it's benefited the community to think about things in a structured way.
Rich, that's a great point. We're not trying to reinvent the wheel here, and EPA brings a ton of resources and experience that we can utilize to help us, here. So, just the resources and the experience. I mean, it's great. So thank you.
Yeah, and I would say that we've already been benefiting from the immense amount of knowledge and expertise that y'all bring to the table. And y'all have also created some really fantastic connections. Like I just keep thinking about some of the really great advice that Kevin was giving us about, his experience in working with y'all and having a partnership with y'all. And I know that this is, it's only the beginning, and really thinking about, I don't know what the future holds, but I know that it certainly benefits from being in partnership with this work with y'all, as well as other folks across the region.
And I just want to make a note that, as we work with different communities, the word gets out, not just within your community, but it will get out nationwide. And so others will look to you to help be a guide to them. And so that's sort of the transferability that we're also hoping to achieve, so we can all move forward addressing the issues that we need to address. So thanks again.
We always have an open door for feedback. If folks have further questions, you can feel free to email me. I think Rich and Joyce, y'all would probably be happy to share your contact information as well, or I can do that after this meeting. I'm actually gonna write that down. But for next steps, kind of, Rich talked a little bit about those. And I think what we're thinking about doing is setting up kind of an advisory group to kind of get us jump started on this work to be able to guide the work. So we're definitely going to be looking to our steering committee members to fulfill roles if you would like to. If you're interested in fulfilling such a role, please reach out. We really are looking to our local folks for guidance, because as awesome as it is to have work that is nationally relevant, how we are at the small scale is how we are at the big scale, as Adrienne Marie Brown says. And I think leaning into that and finding ways for the work to be locally relevant will, in effect, create situations that can scale the work effectively. So if you have any feedback or input, feel free at any time to be able to reach out. Rich and Joyce just cannot thank y'all enough for going out on a limb and reaching out to us. It's really appreciated, and it's been fantastic working with y'all so far, and we look forward to it. All right, we will get to the next section. Is it okay if I take screen sharing from you, Rich? Thank you.
There you go.
All right. Thanks, Rich. I'm writing down that I need to share y'all's emails with the group as well, so that I don't forget. All right, well, I think we've made it through the bigger updates on here. And so we wanted to reach out to our steering committee members and hear from y'all if you have any updates on some of the work that you're doing that you think would be to the benefit of this group to know about. You know, even if it's something like you're looking for feedback, I don't know if there's surveys that can be shared, meetings that are coming up, general work that you would like support with. This is the space to share some of those updates. Hey, Karen, I see you have your hand raised. You can feel free to come off mute.
Hey, yes, I wanted to give an update for the Livingston Parish. We have our association that is, we have a member that is sitting on their drainage committee, and he was requested to have, well, I guess you, Rachel, but the Capital Region Planning Commission come and speak to Livingston Parish just to explain the broader view of like Region 7 and the importance of, you know, the Watershed initiative for Region 7. And so while we're on the call and you ask, I was wondering if that would be something that you would connect with me on, or how can we bring that forward? And I know Steve Kistler, he would be a part of that as well.
Yeah, and I think, Steve, you joined us just a few minutes ago. So I want to make sure that I'm following your direction here as well, you and Karen specifically, but I think let's offline about that and see what type of needs that y'all have for that conversation. And then from there, I think we'll figure out if it's CRPC or OCD or both that makes sense to be there. Does that sound like an okay path forward?
Yes, thank you.
Perfect. I didn't know, Steve, if you got anything to add there, if you're still on the line.
No, I'm just looking forward to meeting with them and seeing how we can all work together.
Perfect. Thanks, Steve. All right. Is there anything else going on, y'all? I know we're a bunch of busy bees. There's a lot happening. Oh, you're a little quiet, Bridget, but I can kind of hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Oh, it sounds like there's some rustling. Maybe try again.
What about now?
Yes.
I just wanted to give an update that our parish council has actually formed a council subcommittee that's called the Watershed Committee to start looking at or addressing issues from at least parish's perspective for coordination, collaboration, to be mindful of building partnerships that we may need to do for regional outreach.
Thanks, Bridget. I think you got to connect with some folks at Ascension about that too. That's a really cool effort, because I know that y'all are thinking about, okay, well, even thinking about coordination, collaboration, and thinking about projects and things. So thanks for sharing that, Bridget. And I'm sure if anybody has questions, Bridget, they can come to you. Oh,
Yes, I'm sorry, I couldn't take myself off mute. Yes, I'll give them whatever guidance I have available, or I can at least point them in the direction of others that may have more expertise.
thanks, Bridget. Appreciate you. All right. And I think we got time for one more update, but if there are others that you want me to share out with the group, that's easy enough for me to do.
I would like to see if CRPC can come to our monthly meeting of the Immediate Basin Commission and explain specifically the, the Region 7, the whole program. It's going to be next month, sometime towards the end of next month. I send you an email if you want me. We'll have somebody come from CRPC to explain the program in Region 7, what the objectives are, where we're moving and what we're doing.
Yeah, absolutely, Dietmar. I'll follow up with you on that as well, similar to Karen and Steve for their updates. So we'll make sure that we can address your needs. Oops, I realized I put myself back on mute. Well, thank y'all very much for that update space. I think it's invaluable for us to be able to have that. We're going to actually kind of shift over these next couple of slides. Usually we have the reminder about the executive order. It's more than the $1.2 billion. We need to give you a reminder of the mission and vision as well. But for the sake of time, so that I can make sure that Tom and Lindsay actually get the feedback that they need, and they can also provide y'all with some important information, I'm going to toss it directly over to them. Oh, sure. What's up, Ross?
Yeah, I do want to read two quick statements from the executive order, just as a reminder, of why we're here, and specifically as it relates to item B on the executive order, identifying and working with or seeking input from additional local, state, and federal agencies. I think that's very timely, considering we have EPA on the line today. So while EPA wasn't specifically listed in item B, they fit perfectly within the John Bell Edwards executive order. So again, just wanted to point it out. And then again, D, increasing state and local resilience to flooding by working to improve response to flooding and reduce the instances of damage and the amount of time needed to recover from flooding. That's why we're here. So let's partner with as many people as we can, OCD, LSU, CRPC, and let's think about EPA. So again, I want to thank Rich and Joyce for being here and giving their time and expertise and knowledge and experience to this group. So I just wanted to point it out. So thanks, Rachel.
Of course, thanks, Ross, for grounding us back in that. And that is the perfect segue, because I think the folks who are on this call already, the folks who are in the steering committee, so everybody from our parish staffers, the Homeowners Association, ARBC, Pontchartrain Conservancy, the list goes on and on. Y'all are part of this vast network that we are strategically tapping into so that we can leverage the work, so that we're bringing more resources to the region, so that we are being supportive and not being duplicative. So Tom and Lindsay, I'll let y'all take it from there. Oh, I can't tell. Lindsay, can you hear me?
We can hear you. Sorry, we're loading the screen. Yeah.
Perfect. I couldn't tell if I was frozen, so good deal.
Sorry, some of that text. So let me introduce us. If you're able to see us, excuse me. I am Thomas Douthit. I'm an assistant professor in environmental studies in the College of the Coast and Environment, Department of Environmental Sciences at Louisiana State University. And my background is in sort of regional planning, collaboration, decision making, and also have a legal background to kind of also look at how that intersects with law and regulation. And to put that in a little more concrete terms, in terms of what we've been discussing today, because that's often very abstract and it makes everybody I know fall asleep. When we talk about the kind of product that Dr. Fulford and would think about structuring a process for structured decision making, we really ask questions about, okay, well, how do our structured decision-making models potentially plug into planning and regulatory questions? And how do those intersect kind of systemically? And we try to visualize that and document that and build tools that will help to hopefully eventually plug into some of those things. And with that, I'll also let Lindsay introduce herself.
Hi, everyone. Thank you all for being here. My name is Lindsay Lamanna, and I'm a graduate research assistant in the Department of Environmental Sciences, and I'm working with Dr. Douthit. And I also have a degree in coastal environmental science.
So Lindsay will be graduating this summer and has done really excellent work, and nothing here would have been all possible without her. So we want to thank her for her diligence and overall excellence. So, you know, we started to discuss this discussion with CRPC, the issue of the tasks set out for Region 7, where you have so many different actors, where you have so many different facets of plans and of planning. And going back again to those LWI objectives, you know, sort of going back to some of the statements we sort of that guided our framing of this research. There are these ideas of how do you take data, engagement, standards, capability, and capacity and integrate them? How do you provide more integrated decision-making to lead to better outcomes? And that integration of floodplain management and of watershed management and planning asks some new questions of us organizationally and institutionally. And we're hoping to have tools that can inform that. And for us, a jumping off place in that process is to document what the existing planning documents are, what the existing planning regulations are, and then try to relate them to each other. So it's not just a question of knowing what we have, but it's to think, okay, well, how does what we have at present fit together? And where are there gaps in coordination or integration? And where might we need to build capacity in order to fill those gaps? And to know that, we want to know what's on the books, what's in the plans. And we know that's not everything, but it's a trackable place to start where we can say, okay, these are the planning documents. This is an initial snapshot that we can build and then ask new questions to get more information as we need it during the process. So we're trying to help answer what exists in our current plans that's relevant to Louisiana Watershed Initiative efforts, the Region 7. So we document content, and then we try to create methods to understand the structure of the planning methods to relate the content of those plans. And so we hope that helps address gaps in watershed governance, helps lead to evaluation, can inform future regional planning efforts, and hopefully also create create information and methods that can also be useful to local constituent planning efforts. And so if we go back to that part of in planning processes, there's often both in transportation, FEMA, this question of assessing capabilities and review in order to do planning. And that's really where we're hoping to contribute at this point. We're not going to solve all the problems or answer everything. And our method for doing that involves, first off, collecting and inventorying relevant planning documents from the region, thematically coding them for content, so identifying the content in a database where we can identify those and then get that. And with that, I'll just break off to sort of a quick document that can show, have I left the PowerPoint?
Yes, you have, but we can't see the other document you're looking
Are you
at.
able to see this one now? They need a new share, sorry guys. Too much DJing here. So if we pull this up, we use a platform called Invivo where we do thematic and qualitative coding, where we go through all the documents and we're able to sort of tag things. And then we're able to print out, for example, an entire list of references by plan to levy districts, watershed related content in all of those plans. And that's useful, but it's also just a long list of paragraphs and data. And so we need to work on methods beyond that to make it interpretable and useful and, you know, hopefully actionable for you guys and for everybody. Now, if I can go back to the PowerPoint, is that share? So then we have to think, okay, well, how can we take some of that data that we've put into sort of attribute level from that and then turn it into relational data? And then how do we take that relational data, analyze it, represent it, and communicate it to produce some kind of meaning? So what we do in that process, we've gone through the first few months, 6 months of the project, about an extensive collection of planning documents. And then we sort of stopped in 2020. So they're very new things. They might not be in this analysis. And, you know, to give you an idea of what content we collected, we really focused on federal, municipal, parish and regional plans. And so we've kind of collected and analyzed 87 of them throughout the region. And actually there are references to other plans that we haven't been able to find that may or may not exist as independent documents that are also in our database. And so this is reflecting this analysis of these 87 plans. So we reviewed some of the literature and we kind of have a protocol for looking at the fact-based coordination, participation, policies, tools, and strategies, and implementation and monitoring. Here, we're going to really focus on some of the network data that we extracted from the coordination and participation elements to show you an example of what we're going to have and some of its applications. And hopefully get some feedback and questions from you that can inform our final work throughout the summer. So these are the kind of things that we are trying to inventory and categorize in the plans. Goals and objectives. So that'll say, are there consistent rules and objectives throughout the goals and objectives throughout the region, or do people frame things and look at things differently? And also, how does it vary with regard to watershed-related things among different types of plans that might be comprehensive plans, hazard plans? Are we all on the same page? And we think that's important as a first step in understanding integration. Also, we want to look at the fact base, as Dimar brought up. You know, are we planning off the same fact bases or making decisions? We're going to try to inventory what plans say about policies. Separately, we're looking at some residential subdivision requirements, but that's another project that we'll present at another time because it gets too complicated. And also with coordination capabilities, can we see anything about participant networks where different actors are present in different forms, and can they inform us anything about the actual structure of coordination? We can look at things about implementation and monitoring. And so we can get some of this data, and let's say we can look at planning data and we can present it as attribute data on maps. But we can also place the content of plans within a regional structure or system. And that's really what we're hoping this can contribute to do as a baseline for understanding how to move forward with developing capability and integration within watershed planning in the region. So we do the document analysis, and that'll allow us in the first part to make lists of all the actors that are involved in the plans. And I'm going to exit out, hopefully not too much friction again, from the PowerPoint one more time and do a new share to this table. So when we exported, this is from a markdown document. We now have these tables we're developing, and hopefully we're going to show where we can look through at least our coded data, and we can say, okay, how many times has a certain organization, let's say the EPA, and mentioned in certain plans and in which ones. So we see there's a mention in the Amite Basin Flood Management Plan, the Baton Rouge, the Regional Transportation Plan. We can look for that. Like we can look for a whole host of actors, any type of organization that's mentioned in a planning document, we've coded them and they'll be in this list. Likewise, we can do it for plans. Which plans talk about other plans? Which ones reference other plans? And likewise, we can search that data. But those are just sort of the data we use as inputs, and hopefully that helps understand the components and steps we take a little bit better, and I'm sorry to go in and out of the PowerPoint, but I didn't know. So we have this process where we import the planning documents, we code them, we analyze them, we extract them, and then we try to represent them. And so what kind of actors or organizations do we have? Are we looking for when we're creating organizations here? So government actors, so there's federal, state, local, educational, institutional, non-governmental organizations, private industries, and professional service organizations. And along with creating the attributes that we put in the actors that we put in the network, we also try to, where possible, include attribute data that we can then use for analysis, especially for local and regional plans. So this is kind of an idea of the data that would go into that we've been exporting and analyzing. So we will use population and control data. We'll have idea on plans or municipality level, NGOs, what types of NGOs. And we can go into a lot of minutia. And in part, we'd like to ask you guys, well, what questions do you think are most relevant for us to ask for you and your work? So an idea of what we can start to do, we can start to then look at patterns of plan mentions. And we sort of use this as a proxy for collaboration. And we know it's an imperfect one, but we think it's a useful jumping off point. And we see that most sort of mentions in plans are parishes mentioning other parishes, and we see very few sort of extra parish mentions. And we can then sort of see what typologies of connections there are in our network. From this, we sort of build a large network that we can represent. And so what is this hairball diagram showing to you? It shows us every organization that's linked to a plan in the region of those 87 plans. And it's hard to get a lot of information from. So we then need to think about, all right, well, what analytic methods or what filtering methods can we use to start to create some understanding of patterns within this potentially confusing network? So we see that there's actually a lot of interconnection between planning documents in different organizations in the region, and how can we start to understand patterns? So to do that, to some extent, we do centrality measures. Centrality measures are ways to look at the network and do statistical operations on it that then provide us ideas about number of ties, who are the actors that are the most core parts of the network. Then it allows us to give us scores for each organization or plan to look at who are the key actors in the planning network, at least as the plans tell the story. And then we can ask the question, will the plans get it right? And if they don't get it right, what does it tell us about the planning process that we might want to change or at least be informed by as we move through the regional watershed approach? Some of the things that popped out very starkly from our analysis, it's not even a network analysis as I was talking about, was that we just looked through those tables where you can sort through. Levee districts, soil and water conservation districts, gravity damage districts are very scarcely mentioned in any planning documents. So just from this preliminary analysis, comparing it to, for example, the governance assessment done by Baker and Donaldson, we can see that planning for watersheds, at least in our formal planning documents, the ones we showed you earlier, haven't formally incorporated these bodies. Maybe they were consulted, maybe they played some role, right, but they're not formally considered in hardly any of our planning documents. And we can see, well, who is considered in our planning documents? Well, mostly government entities, many NGOs, but we can also break that down. We haven't done it here. We can look at, okay, are they community-based? Are they more foundations? Are they equity-oriented? Are they, faith-based? Are there capacities to engage certain groups that we don't see in the plans that we need to try to build. And we can also see, interestingly, so educational institutions, and I guess this is self-serving, but this is just what the data said, are not a big part of the planning networks, but in fact, where they are, they have a lot of connections to different plans. And so in terms of building capacities, we have this idea of brokerage and developing brokerage capabilities. How can we build up connections and groups and capabilities with organizations that can facilitate collaboration in the region to fit our needs? The other thing we can do is to sort these data and filter out, again, from this giant hairball. We can filter out that. Part of the problem is that that's a hierarchical network. It involves federal actors, state actors, actors that are very different from each other. But when we sort out just local planning organizations, and we look at, okay, are local government entities and local government plans mentioning each other or coordinating with each other around these issues, at least in the planning documents, we can really see that the problem identified by the Watershed Initiative bears itself out in this analysis, right? That we see planning is very much, at least in planning documents, limited to jurisdictions. And so if you have a multi-jurisdictional issue, you have to sort of institutionally plan to resolve that. Likewise with plan, though, this is a similar question with where we've added in plans that are not just local. When we look at just the network of plans, so we're not looking at actors, and we can see that there's actually some of the central organizations are the Louisiana Coastal Master Plan, Louisiana Hazard Master Plan, LA Safe, regional documents. And when we put some of these same mentions on a geospatial projection, we can see that there is structure in coordination in some elements. And we can sort of see, well, where do we have regional coordination already? And we can see it in transportation because we have an existing MPO structure, both to New Orleans and to CRPC. We can see it to some extent with the Amite Basin Commission as a multi-jurisdictional entity that exists in our region already. And we can then see it with state and federal programs, especially hazard mitigation and resilience where there's planning already. And so there's a gap maybe in thinking about, okay, well, where would a specific watershed entity fit into this picture in the region? So some of our preliminary takeaways are that, there's not a lot of existing, at least in the planning document, horizontal collaboration among different parishes. Those are often where that collaboration, where those mentions are existing, are through often, spatially defined within different metro areas. The role where we do have in terms of regional issues now is framed by regional organizations and federal and state agencies that where we can really see some kind of consistency in issues is mostly through the hazard mitigation planning, coastal master planning efforts that exist in the state. That, it's very much driven, as we know, by local government organizations, but we're missing some key potential stakeholders, drainage districts, and also maybe integration with other areas. But we also see from this that rural parishes are less central in the planning network, and they might need more resources and support in developing planning or engagement with some of these issues because of their lower population base and as a result, smaller economies. So moving forward, what's next over the summer? We're hopefully going to be putting all of this on a sort of public-facing webpage, a GitHub page, where you'll also be able to see our analysis and coding and all of that. To do all this work, we're going to be including a full plan evaluation content. So it's not an evaluation like giving a grade. It's just a content review based on those elements we discussed earlier. And we're also going to integrate some of these actor network representations with similar networks based on both policies and on goals and objectives to look for consistency in policies and goals and objectives. But I know I talked a lot. I don't know if Lindsay has any input, but we'd love to open the floor to any questions that you might have for us that could inform us, making our work more useful to you in your everyday work here in the region. So thank you.
Thank you, Tom. I think you covered it all. I just wanted to say that we have made great progress on this. And I also want to thank CRPC. And it's still a work in progress right now, but I think we'll have a lot of interesting results. And I think everyone will be very interested in to see how we could better coordinate and what those plans are telling us that, or would you know that those plans are not already telling us from our analysis? So, thank you.
Let me make a comment, Thomas. Let me tell you, my background, my master's is in system analysis. So I understand diagrams, I understand the concept of optimization, I follow that background. But I tell you, I'm talking from my heart, not my brain. All of this needs to be put in English. I don't believe we're going to move too far forward because 99.9% of the people will not even understand. I'm kind of, my brain is turning in circles. I really could not keep up with it. And then, for example, some of the diagrams and there's some values, the XY coordinates, and what does it mean? Some of them are in the thousands, some of them are 60 or in the hundreds. I know those are all indexes, but even for me to grasp this, I'm a little bit lost. I'm not saying this is bad or good. I think, you guys did an excellent job. The other part of the comment I want to make is be careful of trying to quantify qualitative data. Planning is qualitative, it's not quantitative. And we need to keep that in the background so that these things mesh to a logical point, so to speak. But the number one thing is I would advise that as this moves forward, to put it into some narrative way that could be understood. I'm not being critical. I'm just trying to help. Okay, honestly.
No, those are all good observations, and thank you for making them. I guess you're definitely right that qualitative data there are pitfalls in trying to quantify some of it. Some of the data, I guess, are not really entirely qualitative. Some of it is we're just counting how many times an organization is mentioned and linking them. And with some of the goals and objectives, you're right about that. But what we're trying to do, and this is maybe the question I pose to the group, is sort of to try to create methods to some extent normalize and to understand what different actors and organization plans are doing, so we can compare them and understand how to do integration better and to do capability development better. And some of that we're kind of arguing does require a degree of the ability to standardize what everybody around us are doing so we can conceptualize that with a little bit more clarity, because otherwise, if everything's entirely qualitative, then we don't really know what we've planned for. We can't have standards, or we can't, in the long run, really assess if we've achieved any of our objectives. But I take your point about the communication of that to heart. And if there are any elements of these, I can go back and talk in more detail about the diagrams if you have questions about them.
I'm curious from the group to hear, do you have any like curiosity about, you know, what are some of the questions that you would like for Lindsay and Tom to explore? So I'm thinking, you know, what are some of the things that you might be curious that might be similar between plans that would be supportive of the work or your understanding of it that could better inform the work that you're doing? Are you curious about some of the differences between them? Are there certain aspects? We've got about 5 minutes or so for questions. So you can definitely get a copy of this presentation, Russ. We're going to send that out to everybody on this group, and it'll also be on the website.
Well, maybe I could ask a question about that. Just wanted to maybe spur a little bit of conversation. Now, with this diagram here, it shows that planning around watershed issues. So what this shows is every municipal office that's mentioned in a plan, and then the plans. This would be every plan that's mentioned, and the blue lines represent where there's an explicit watershed type issue linked in that text around it. And we can print out all those mentions if there are questions about them. And with that, they're not explicit mentions of other jurisdictions by local government planning. And do you think that that's just an artifice of what the plans are, or do you think that represents accurately the greater need for integration or development of cross-jurisdictional collaboration that the Watershed Initiative suggests? In part, Dietmar, I don't want to give you guys a narrative. we want to develop conceptual tools and ask questions so it can be as objective as possible and as transparent as possible. Because I don't want it to seem like I'm developing a narrative for the region about what this data says that's not clear and backed by what is actually there, and anybody can go through and look at, you know.
Can you repeat your second point about this particular
I guess,
slide?
do you think this is a question? Do you think this shows a high level of fragmentation among parishes and municipalities in terms of their planning documents considering neighboring parishes and jurisdictions? Do you think that accurately reflects a baseline state pre-watershed initiative of planning in the region?
I would probably say yes. I spent 15 years on the private side doing work in Southeast Louisiana before taking this public job about 1.5 years ago, not even. And yeah, and then from being here on the public side for 1.5 years, this is probably very accurate. And if we had more cross connections and lines connecting all of these, it'd be great, but we don't. So that's why we're here. So maybe help and correct that.
Yeah, and so that in plain English, that's kind of what that says. Thank you for phrasing it better than I am. In part because I don't want to tell you guys your reality. I just want to tell you what's in the plans.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen plans all across Louisiana, really, and I haven't seen too many instances where they actually do, let's say cross communicate or mention each other. The only thing I would say about this particular slide, and I don't know if this is if you did it this particular way or not for any particular reason, but I'd find St. Tammany. If there any way we can overlay these on top of a Louisiana grid, and then I can see St. Tammany. Yeah, perfect. Just like that, except the other slide, I guess. Just move them around.
Yeah. So we're working on some of the visualizations. This one is organized based on, excuse the term, graph theoretic principles, right? So there's an algorithm that's telling, it's saying based on the relationship in the network, place the organizations or the plans there based on how much they relate to each other. And so
I
that's
say, just for me, you have to dumb it down.
yeah, no, well, sorry. I mean, even, for us, yeah. And so that's why it's shaped like that. And that's not always, you're right. It's not always intuitive because, well, like Santa Helena is not right next to St. James. And so,
Yeah, right.
And so that there's some of the programs we do, they do it this way. And if we want to do it differently, we have to work on that. And that's in part what I've done here, because part of it's hierarchical. And what I think what you're talking about there is framed in this, we do have existing mentions in regional structures. And if we go in, we can see that there is a hierarchical nature, right? Where there are not a lot of, if the ones that are in Mississippi are the federal, regional, and state plans. And we put them there, not because, we want to favor Mississippi or anything, we just needed to give it some hierarchy. And so everything that's, a local plan should have a connection. You can see there are very few of those lines connecting to each other. That means those plans aren't mentioning each other. And so when there is interjurisdictional mentions, it's done through state and regional organizations. And what that might inform us is that it's hard to collaborate horizontally on everything. And you might need it might be the most efficient way, at least in our current government structures, might be through regional organizations and entities. That could be one interpretation. And we see it with MEET and we see it with the MPOs especially. Most of those regional links are through MPOs. And most of the state ones are through hazard mitigation plans or LA Safe.
I'll thank you for the explanation.
And in the long run, we also want to, to use this as a baseline. What would it look like in 10 years? And we also hope that by collecting these data, they maybe could be useful for you. You can always email us and we can give you all the planning documents that we have. And over time, to look at the content of the plans, see if it changes and see if there are different outcomes. Because right now, I don't think we have a systematic enough collection of planning documents to really make an assessment of what we've planned for or haven't planned for within Watershed to even know if our existing efforts, as fragmented as they are, have been effective or not.
I'm curious if there are any other thoughts or comments, and this is not the last time that Tom and Lindsay are going to present this work.
Yeah, we're in the middle of well, not in the middle, but on the front end of a comprehensive plan update for St. Tammany. It's making me rethink, how I do this thing. So thank you.
Well, look, I didn't want to say this. Keep in mind that as far as planning, we live in the Stone Ages. We live in the Stone Ages as far as planning, even in the larger cities. We cannot jump from the Stone Age to Space Age in one quantum jump. I think it's far more important, the process of getting better or getting more sophisticated. But to tell you the truth, I guess I don't want to say this, but I say it, is that we have to keep that background in mind. We're going to ultimately have to deal with politicians to get some of these. If you want to implement it, you have to deal with local governments. And by the way, I used to work at the Capital Region Planning Commission in my earlier life. And so I know about regional planning, I know that too. But really also from those experience, and even today with my job here with the Mid River Basin, there has to be a way of how do you sell this to the local governments? That is to be very, very, very important. I'm not saying that this is not. I think this is good to establish the framework and so on and so forth. But when it comes down to it, it's far more important, how do you get from point A to point B? That's what I think is important. I said enough, guys. It's enough for me.
We would certainly agree with that, 100%. And what we hope is that maybe this could be useful in developing strategies to do that and reflecting on ways to do that. Now that you're starting, so, you're in the first year of a process. We hope that having this information is useful to you for years 2, 3, 4, 5, or whatever it will be.
Well, this is definitely not the last time for feedback. We're going to get the slides from Tom and Lindsay, and so that feedback window is open for a long time, and certainly through the next couple of months, really. So if there are things that come up, we will make sure that Tom and Lindsay can address those, and then we're also going to have an opportunity for other folks to get access to this information once it's more robust and filled out, i.e. when Lindsay is closer to defending her thesis, which is this summer. So I did note, Devin, you said that you can't tell, but it looks like Laplace might be labeled as Montague on the map. And I think that I might have seen that as well. I think that's an easy fix. I'm like looking at Tom's and Lindsay, but
how is Laplace labeled?
I think it might say Montague.
Okay, I'll use another base map. That's one I pulled it off of a web server, so my apologies.
So the original web server, wherever you got it from. Oh my gosh, maybe we should let them know. Cool. All right, cool. Well, thank you so much, Tom and Lindsay. As always, we very much appreciate y'all's efforts and work, and just like the real support that you've provided for this work. Just can't thank you enough. We're going to go into the next part of the agenda. And that is specifically to talk about the round 1 project selection process. We're going to do a quick recap. And my colleagues at OCD, Evelyn specifically, feel free to jump in here as well, but just doing a quick recap, and then we're going to go over the document that we sent out to everybody. So as a reminder, on March 23rd, we talked about the project selection process. We talked about it in the February meeting as well. So that discussion ended up with a consensus exercise that determined that the steering committee would like to follow the state selection process. There were a lot of reasons for that, kind of on both sides of the coin. But some points from that is that, this is only for round 1. There's 2 additional rounds in the future. This is an interim committee, so we were hearing that acknowledgement, and really didn't want to have to pass on the responsibilities of future committee having to defend that process. We also heard, that there's a limited amount of time to create a region-specific process. It's very fast, and also heard, it's not listed here, but that the state, it seemed like there was intention within the criteria. Some other things that we heard was it would have been nice to be able to have the regional process stood up and ready for this, but that it might make more sense to be able to think about that more strategically for rounds 2 and 3. Is there anything I'm missing with regards to that from any steering committee members?
The way I understand it, Rachel, we still have to make a decision?
Only thing we got to do today, Dietmar, is vote. So it's one of our official rules from OCD, one of our guideposts.
How many members on this committee have a project that is part of the projects that are going to be looked at? You see, we need to look. I put in a application at the very beginning, and I tell you, I'm so glad that I did not pursue it. And I left it die. And so in retrospect, I felt that that was the right decision. And so we have to be extremely careful here of that. If these members, there are members here that have put a proposal together that is on the committee, that can cause a big problem with ethics. Look, I am a little bit snake bit with that process, and I think we need to be. I'm bringing the issue up is because I don't feel comfortable at all making decision. I go back to my original position. The state has all the data, the state can do everything, let them make the decision. And let's wait until the permanent committee comes in, because I don't want to put this on the burden of any individual person on this committee. Later on, somebody will be criticized or say something about it. That's my point of view.
Yeah, thanks, Dietmar. I think that's, those are certainly things that we've been thinking about in the context of this. And I think that was a part of, why I think one of the other discussion points that came up during the March 23rd steering committee was really thinking, okay, well, maybe for multiple reasons, it makes more sense to be able to leverage the state's decision-making process for this. Evelyn, I know there's been a lot of conversations about ethics that we have had in the background, but I know that really comes down to state policy, so I might toss it over to you.
Sure. Thanks so much, y'all. And I think that thank you, Rachel and Dietmar, for joining in this conversation. I think, Rachel, you kind of set the context really well, so I don't have anything to add to kind of, why we're talking about this today. I think that's exactly right. This group, does have an action before you just on which direction you want to go in terms of the regional project selection function. And I know I think we have Dree on the line still from OCD. If we do have any kind of specific questions that have a legal aspect to them, but I would just mention to the group, everyone on the steering committee, because you are on this committee, has you're subject to a conflict of interest disclosure requirement if you do suspect that you may have a conflict of interest. Now, I know Rachel and I have been very repetitive about explaining the importance of ethics training and, identifying things that could be a conflict of interest proactively. So it's not something that concerns me with anyone in this group, but I'm just bringing it up to say that if you have any specific questions, always reach out. And we can work with the legal folks that really know how to kind of dissect those issues with you. But they do need a specific question, right? It's kind of hard to say across the board. If anyone has just general hypotheticals, that's a little bit harder to address. But I just commend this group in really taking this very seriously, and looking at all the angles of the questions here. As you know, you've all become very familiar with the criteria for this program. So again, just thank you for making sure that you're informed and supporting the process.
Thanks, Evelyn. I'm just pausing before we go through the documents that we have. I know last time we didn't have it on the agenda to do a formal vote, but we did have consensus that we would like to use the state's process. So we're just making sure that we're recapping everything. I know there were some questions that were brought up about what do we do if there's a tie, for example. So we look to the state for their policy, and that's what we're leveraging. So. I'm not hearing anything from the group, so we will move forward on the couple of documents, the singular document that linked to one document at the state level. And then folks at OCD, Evelyn specifically, I'm gonna lean on y'all for specifically the round one policies and procedures. So essentially what's on this page, y'all, and if you actually access the document, I think I put it in the chat pod earlier, and I can certainly put that back in, but specifically that document lays out a couple of different scenarios. So if there's a tie, for example, what would we do? If there's other scenarios that were brought up during last time, kind of how would we address those within that document? And I'll go ahead and click on it so I can pull it up. You'll see this link here, round one, P&P, that's for policies and procedures. So then page 24 is exactly what you're seeing here. So it's specifically what that state process is, which we've discussed this before. But I mean, Evelyn, do you want to kind of pull out some of the big points in here? Like, so items 1, 2, and 3 for situational awareness, y'all. Those are things that we've kind of already addressed yeah, those are things we've already addressed. Evelyn, do you want to kind of talk a little bit about item 4, that's specifically the state process, and then we'll go into that document that was sent out to the steering committee.
Sure. So yeah, as you're saying, Rachel, this group has sufficiently met 1, 2, and 3. So great job on that. Or I'm sorry, 1 and 2. Now, on 3 and 4, this group has a choice before you that I think is the subject of your vote today. The state policy document that this features gives each region a choice to option 1 there would be to develop a process to establish your own regional priorities in order to select projects. And so that implies that that's different from just those projects that would be highest ranked by the state in your region. So what I've heard from this group sounds like some deliberation on potentially going with option 2, which is that whatever projects are ranked the highest in your region by the state scoring would be the ones that you would pursue recommending for funding for your regional $5 million, up to $5 million award. And I know this is a lot of details. So if anyone wants to kind of clarify any part of what I just said, if you have questions, jump in. But what I've heard from this group is, again, that you're familiar with the state's criteria. And this document kind of lays out, in the policies and procedures for round 1, it does lay out too how the 60 million is awarded. So that's the state only awards portion too. So if anyone has any questions on either part of that, just let me know.
Thanks, Evelyn. Oh, Tom, you're off mute. Did you have something to add?
Yeah, just to clarify, my appreciation of what we're doing today is formalizing the vote we took last time to use the process that the state uses rather than creating our own process.
Yeah,
So
that
we
is
made the
correct,
decision
Tom.
last time. Yeah, and that's all we're talking about today. So I know we have 15 minutes left of the meeting. I'm ready to vote.
Oh, okay.
Myself.
We go till 3:30, but we can try to end early. I love the ambition. End about 3.
Well, I have to, so let's just keep moving.
All right. Hear that loud and clear. Does anybody disagree with that? Okay. Well, perfect. So the document that we'd sent out was to address a couple of key items that were brought up. So specifically, those points are also written on the slide. So, there were a couple of things that were brought up, in the event that the highest ranked projects don't add up to exactly 5 million, the next ranking project that would result in awards greater than 5 million within the region can recommend to award the remaining balance of 5 million to a lower ranking project. So I think, that had come up where it's like, if the top ranked project is $3 million and the next one is 3 million, that's over our 5 million total, right? Because it can't be a recommendation in excess of 5 million. So this is essentially saying that you can award that remaining balance to a lower ranking project that does not result in aggregate awards exceeding that 5 million. And then in the event of a tie, the region can defer to the state. What I've heard in conversations, or what's been explained to me in conversations with Evelyn as well as other folks from the Office of Community Development, is that the likelihood of a tie is really unlikely. So that's good news. They're of course still reviewing all of the projects, but I was told that that's probably not likely to happen. So unless there are any other questions, I think we might be ready for the process to vote.
Rachel, do I need to call for a vote?
Yes, can I really quickly explain how we're going to do it?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Great. So we have the vote written out here. Let me see if I can make this just a bit bigger. Okay, that's maybe too big, but we'll roll with it. All right, so essentially the vote is the region will recommend projects for funding based on the established LWI round 1 project selection process and criteria. So this is capturing that question of priorities that Evelyn had just mentioned. So it's saying that we're defaulting to their criteria as the priorities for round 1 specifically, right? This is only for round 1. Yay means that you're in favor, nay means that you're opposed. And we ask that steering committee members come off mute to state their votes, or they can put it in the chat pod. And so as a reminder, we're going to do 1 vote per member affiliation. And so we'll do it just like we do roll call. I'm going to call off the parish or the individuals who have recorded here, and then we will do the vote. So that's the explanation.
So you ready for me? All right, so I'm not sure exactly how to word this thing, but so, and do I need to make a motion or ask someone to make a motion for the vote, or I just call for the vote based on a question?
So I think we got the vote written here, Ross. So you'd say I make and if I'm wrong about this, somebody feel free to jump in, correct me, please. But say I make a motion to vote that the region will recommend. So it's written on this slide, and I can make it big again.
Well,
I'll make a
I think as
motion.
chairman, I'm gonna have to ask someone else to do that, right?
I'll make a motion. I'll make the motion. This is Major.
Thank you, Major.
Thanks, Major.
Can we get a second?
Bridget, I'll second.
Thank you, Bridget. That's why I need a vice. We can work through these things easier. So thank you, Major and Bridget.
Perfect. All right, so what we'll do is I'll call off thanks y'all. I'll call off the affiliation, and then we will work from there. And I've done something with my taskbar here. It's being quite bizarre. All right, so for Ascension Parish, I think we had Ron Savoy on the phone. Can I get a yay or nay from you? Go ahead.
Let me make sure I'm clear that a yay stands for the process that the state has brought to us.
For round 1 specifically, yes.
Yay.
Thank you. All right, East Baton Rouge, I see you, Tom.
Yeah, this is Tom, and yes.
All right. East Feliciana is absent today. I know John Clark, you signed on a little late. Are you with us? Can you vote?
That'll be a yay.
Thanks, John. And we got Steve Kistler as well.
A yay for Livingston.
Thanks, Steve. All right, what about Earl with St. Charles?
Earl from St. Charles, yay.
Yay. And I acknowledge the yay vote from you, Karen, in the chat pod. Thank you for putting that in there. What about you, Major, from St. Helena?
It's still yay.
Perfect. Thank you. We didn't get anybody from St. James, so Ryan LaRue, so Donna do on the line, huh? Not seeing them. All right, so they're absent. And I know that Renee is absent. All right. Do we have Bobby Joe Breland or Alex Summerall? I'm not sure if they were able to make it on after their 1 o'clock meeting. All right. All right, St. Tammany Parish.
Yay.
Thanks, Ross. All right, Tangipahoa, so Bridget.
Yay.
All right. We don't have Bobby Joe. Gary Miga, West Louisiana.
Yay.
All right, thank you. Dietmar with Ain't River Basin.
Yay.
Thank you. I got yours recorded, Karen, thank you. And then Ronnie Carter with Posturing.
Yay.
All right. All right, well, I think we're good to go, Ross. So it looks like that passes.
Yep, motion passes. Thank you.
Thanks, Shel. All right, last order of business, and I think Tom Stevens, you got us, you got us on track. We're probably going to end early today, so thank you, thank you, thank you. last voting item, we did receive a couple of nominations for vice chair. So just wanted to see, does anybody else on the call that's a regional steering committee member want to nominate somebody for the position of vice chair? So we received a nomination for Bridget Bailey and Ronnie Carter. Is there anybody else?
Major, I can see that your box is lighting up as if you're talking into the microphone, but it's so quiet that I can't quite hear it.
Oh, Major's not talking. You might hear some background. I'm going back to mute.
Gotcha. Sorry about that.
Is Karen's hand still up from previously, or is that a new hand up?
Oh, and I'd actually, I'm sorry. We did get a nomination for Karen Zeta. That was in a phone discussion. I forgot to put that on here. So.
I would like to say that there's no way I could bring to the table everything, all the professionalism that Chuck brought to the table. But I do think that that Bridget Bailey would be a good decision.
Thanks, Ronnie.
Thanks, Ronnie.
Bridget, do you accept your nomination there? I think there were a couple of folks beyond just Ronnie who had mentioned you.
Yes, I'll accept.
Good.
Ronnie did that way too quickly.
And Karen got you too.
Yeah.
And Bridget,
Okay,
I'll
Karen.
always be there to support you if you are nominated.
Well, and Ronnie, you're on this list too. Karen, thank you. Acknowledging the chat pod, you'd like to pass that opportunity to somebody else to have that recorded. But Ronnie, you were also nominated. Do you accept that nomination?
I'd like to pass if that would be okay.
Hey, boss, sorry about that. I'm on the Louisiana Watershed Initiative.
I saw Steve Kissler's box lighting up, but I didn't know if it was for this or something else, but it seemed like it was for something else.
I think he might have been talking about something else. Steve, if we're incorrect in that, feel free to come off mute. Sound like he might have been on the phone. Okay. All right. Well,
do we need a formal vote?
Well, I think what we'll do here, if Bridget's the only one who accepts, is we might want to switch the way that we're doing this. So maybe the motion is, Bridget Bailey will become the next vice chair, and then we'll see if there is any who are opposed.
Ronnie, you want to make that motion?
Yes, I'll make a motion that we accept Bridget Bailey as vice president.
Chair.
Chair.
I second it. Major Coleman second it.
All right, got a motion and a second. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion passes.
All right. Well, Bridget, you're our next vice chair.
Congratulations.
No problem. I don't mind being Ross's second in command, his backup.
Hey, we're all a team here. We just have to do extra work.
I'm familiar with that concept.
My confidence that Bridget will do a great job.
I think so too. Thanks, Bridget, for stepping up to the plate. I promise that we try to really do our best to make sure that we're supportive and set y'all up for success during the meetings and conversations. We try to keep the workload really light, I promise. But all right, y'all. Well, that's all that we had for business today. So remaining part is public comment, and I did just want to call out, we did have somebody use the pluses and deltas board last time, and they provided something that they liked. They liked the examples and systems thinking demonstrated in Steve PQ's presentation. So Steve's not on the call with us, but I'm definitely going to make sure that he receives some of that praise as well. We do have another pluses and deltas board. So essentially a plus is something you really liked. A delta is something that you think could be improved on. So for example, somebody might say, I liked that we ended 30 minutes early. So like some folks might say that today. So feel free to use that. You can provide feedback at any point in time via that. And then also we have the public comment section of the agenda. So if anybody would like to come off mute and make a public comment, now is the time. Yes, and Ross, we do have that. We have one more question for the steering committee members. So maybe while we're in the public comment period, Evelyn, can you pop up the poll? During my check-in with Ross had asked if it would be possible for us to change the meeting format in the summer and think about meeting in person. So for our regional steering committee members, we ask, you select yes, no, or unsure.
Yeah, and we can make this, as Rachel was saying when we were speaking previously, we can make this a sort of a touring kind of, in-person meeting. So we can hit, every part of the region and just go visit each other and see people in person and, just work together more collaboratively. So I hope we get back to normal.
I completely agree with that. And I'll go a step further and say, if we do come to that decision, that we'll be interested in hosting if we have like our first meeting in Tangipahoa, Hammond area, if that's possible.
And y'all gonna make it that easy for me on the first in person? I just gotta drive 10 minutes from my house.
That's a good idea. Tangipahoa Parish is sort of in the center right there of the whole region. So that's a great idea. That's why we made you vice chair.
Hey, y'all, this is Earl. Can we make it a hybrid format in case I can't make it that far?
We have the technology that we could definitely make that happen if we have it in Hammond.
Excellent. Yeah, great idea.
Perfect. We're gonna leave this poll up for just a little bit longer, but does anybody have any public comments? I'm a facilitator. I'm not uncomfortable with the silence. Could sit here all day like this.
I didn't see Mr. Kelly on the line today, so this will be the first meeting that he missed.
I know. I thought about reaching out to see what he had going on today. Something more important, I think, or hoping he's feeling well. Usually he doesn't like to miss these. Okay. Well, maybe it's a good opportunity, Ross and Bridget now. Do you think we're okay to move out of the public comment section of the meeting? Yeah. See a head nod. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, perfect. So it looks like we have a couple people who are unsure about meeting in person for summer RSC meetings. If you're unsure, feel free to reach out to me. If you're unsure or no, please reach out to me. You can do so. Just send me an email. You can call me or you can text me and just let me know kind of what are some of the things that you might be unsure about, or how we can make sure that this experience, if we do in person, would work for you as well, because that's really one of my priorities too. All right, I think the last thing is just a couple of things here. We already considered the in-person meeting. We have upcoming meetings in May, so May 25th from 1 to 3:30, June 29th from 1 to 3:30. And I think the last order of business is to adopt the March 23rd meeting minutes. That's it.
Can I get a motion to adopt the meeting minutes from March 23rd?
I make a motion.
Earl got the motion. Bridget, you have the second?
I'm the second.
Second.
Anybody opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. The last order of business, other than to thank our great team that we have here between CRPC and OCD, and the tremendous work that they do with LSU and bringing in EPA and all the other partners that I always fail to mention, but obviously they're doing a great job and trying to get us to a point where we're working regionally, collaboratively, trying to solve issues that we all have. And if we can work together and, you know, solve these problems, it'll make for a better community for all of us. So again, I appreciate it. I appreciate everyone being here for 2 hours today. And I will see y'all on May 25th. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
I make a,
Second.
All right, so I had Bridget with the motion and I had Ronnie with the second or Major with the second?
it was two
Someone
seconds.
else.
I think I heard Major.
No,
Anybody opposed? All right, meeting adjourned. Thank y'all very much.
Thank y'all so much. Bye, everybody. Have a great weekend.
Get some
Guys,
crawfish.
and it's
Bye,
great.
y'all.
Yes. Get crawfish.